Hi everybody! In this episode we will automate a task that we or our parents are doing pretty much every morning. Finding out the weather forecast so we know how we should dress for going out for school or work. And we will talk about something very important called selectors. So let's create a new process in Studio. We can call it weather forecast. We can use the same name for the description. We hit the create button and this creates a new blank workspace. And now we can go to the activities tab. If it's not selected automatically, we can do it by clicking the activities button. And we can start opening the main workflow. So what do we want to do? We want to find out what the weather forecast is. So we have to open web browser, go to something like accuweather.com and find out the weather for our city. So to open a browser, we can use the open browser activity, just drag and drop it. And then we have to give it here the URL, which is the web address. So we can just type or copy paste in quotation marks, this is very important, the browser address of this AccuWeather webpage. We can hit enter and we can follow along as well with an open browser. So just to be able to show the robot what he should do. So this is the web page that will open. Then we have to basically enter here the location. And let's inspect it. I live in Heidelberg. So if I were to enter my city, I would have probably to enter the whole name just to minimize the number of clicks I would have to do. So let's go back to the robot and we have to type in something. And for that, we have an activity called type into. And we have to drag and drop it here inside this do box. So basically everything we want to do in this browser at this address, we have to drag and drop and use inside this do box here. So we have a type into and we have to show it first or indicate first inside the browser where we want to type something. So I click it and I click this box here, the search box basically. And now I have to say here or quote the text that should be typed into. And I can just take my city and the area and the country, something like this. I have to put quotation marks as well. So this would type this text into this element here. And what do I need to do next is basically hit an enter, right? And for that, there is also a separate activity that we can use is send hotkey. I can drag and drop it here after the type into, and I can choose the key enter. All right, so we are now on this page and we want to read the temperature and also find out maybe if it's raining or not, because if it's raining, we might have to take an umbrella. So we look on the page, we inspect the page, we see here the temperature. So we have to get this value here. And we see that it's partly sunny. We see an image as well, which might be a bit harder to interpret, but we have the text here, partially sunny. If it would be raining, it will probably say partial rain or rainy or something like that, something that contains the word rain inside, most probably. All right, so we have hit the enter. Now we have to get this text. And for that, we have an activity called just like that, get text. So we can drag and drop it after the enter. We can just name this properly. We say hit enter. And we say here, type into city name. All right, now we say get temperature. And here we have to indicate again inside the browser the element. So we indicate this one over here. We get a text in this output variable. So we can hit here, if you remember from the last videos, Control K, that creates a variable on the spot. And we will get something of type string. So we can name our variable str underscore and then maybe temp from temperature. We hit enter. And this basically creates automatically the variable here. And it also makes sure that whatever we get with this action will be stored in this variable. All right, now it's interesting to look a bit at the selector. If we click on these three lines here, we have edit selector. And it's always important to be aware of how our selectors look like, because if we don't make sure they are properly defined, our automation might not work in 1 hour or in 1 day or on a different computer, because the selector might contain something specific to our user or computer or just maybe the time of the day or the browser. And we see here we have the URL, which looks quite good. It's star, and the star stands for any number of characters. Then AccuWeather.com and then another star. So this basically points to any browser window which contains the AccuWeather.com name inside the title, which looks good. But then we see something here which looks a bit complicated, but it's important just to spot this value here, 13 degrees. So this is the temperature right now, this hour. In 1 or 2 hours, that would be probably different. And if we keep this value of 13 degrees Celsius in our selector, basically our selector will only work when there are 13 degrees outside. If not, it won't anymore. The temperature is already 14 degrees now, so it changes every hour or less. So we have to make sure we make this independent of the time and of the actual weather outside. So we can replace the number with a star and then validate it and make sure that it still finds the selector. So if we validate it, we can also click highlight and it will just put a red box around the selection that we are interested in. So it still works, it's good, we can keep it like this. And we can move forward. After we get the temperature, we also want to get how the weather looks like, if it's raining or sunny or cloudy. And for that we can use another get text activity. We can just drag and drop it again. We have to indicate inside the browser element, we indicate this label here. And for a value, we can say again Control K to create a new variable. And we can say str weather, for example. And the value of this text basically will be saved inside this variable called str from string underscore weather. If we check here in variables, it is also created here. Now, it's good practice every now and then, especially for debugging purposes, to just log some of the variables so we know what's happening. We can say log level info, and we can say here str temp. Then to concatenate two texts, we use the plus sign. We can put a space here just to make it easily readable, and then plus again and str underscore weather. So this will just show here on the output pane the values of these two texts, just to make sure that we've picked the right ones from the website. Okay, now we have to decide what to do. We have the information already, and we can use some if decision trees. We can drop the first one here, and let's say if the temperature is below 10 degrees Celsius, then we want to get a code, for example. So we can say, for example, str underscore temperature. It's less than 10. But we have a problem because str temp is of the data type string. And we actually need to compare a number with 10 and not a text or a string with the value 10. So it means that we have to convert our string value into a number. And for that we have kind of a function called, or a library called convert. And then we use the toInt32 function there. And we just put strtemp into brackets. So we have convert to int32. It is basically converting it to a number, and we convert this string to a number. All right, and then we can use some assigns. We say if this is happening, if the temperature is below 10, then we can create a new variable and we say str from string and then response. This would be the response the bot gives to us, the users. We hit enter. And then we can say here something like get a code. All right, and for else, so if the temperature is not below 10, it's 10 or more, then we can have another if condition. And we say if we can copy the same thing here. So if the temperature is below 20, let's say this time, then we use an assign and we say str response should be get hoodie, for example. And if else, we can select Ctrl C for copying and paste here. And if not, we say maybe something like just t-shirt is fine. All right, we can make here the zoom a bit smaller so we can see more. So we have this decision tree. If the temperature is less than 10, we get a coat. If it's between 10 and 20, we get a hoodie. And if it's over 20, then we get just a t-shirt. And then let's also deal with the raining factor. We can drag and drop another if activity here, and we say to get weather. And in this variable string weather, we have either sunny or cloudy or rainy. And we can say here if string weather, and we can say dot contains, and we put here the word rain. If it contains rain inside it, like rainy for example, or heavy rain or light rain, then we want to have an assign here, and we want to say in addition to the first text here, get an umbrella for example. So we say str response, then we have to add to what we have already, and we say basically str response plus, so whatever was there before from the first if, plus something like quotation mark, put a space, and we say get an umbrella as well. All right, so we have our ifs here, and to close we can basically close the tab. We have an activity called close tab. We just drag and drop it here after the last if. And at the end, just to send the user the message, we have something called a message box that we can use just at the end here. And we can just put here the str underscore response. We see we don't find it. Normally it should have come here. It means that it doesn't find the variable. Either we didn't define it properly, or the scope is just inside this box up here and not outside. So if we open the variables tab, we see nothing here. We clicked outside. If I click inside the web page, I see all of them. Temp, weather, response. And the scope of this string response has to be higher one level. So at the level of this whole sequence, this is the sequence, the whole program. So basically I'm saying this response has to be at this level, so I can see it outside this browser page and use it here. So I can say now, if I type again str, I have it here, str response. So this is important to understand what is the scope of a variable. I have the type, which is by now, I hope, clear. We have the name, and the scope is where it is valid. So if I make this even smaller, inside this box, open browser, we have 3 variables, and strtemp, strweather are only available here. But once I go out of this do box basically and back to the main program, I don't see them anymore. I just see this one. So this is just one thing to understand and keep in mind. So our program is finalized now. Let's try to run it. We can close the browser page here and let's see what the bot will do. We can run the file. It opens the browser page, types in the city name, and then we have an error from the if. saying the input string was not in a correct format. So it has tried to convert this input string to a number and failed. Let's see why. And now it comes really handy that we have printed here the value. So we see it's 14, but it also has the degree Celsius at the end. And this is a source of the error because it tries to convert the whole string, 14 degrees Celsius, to a number, and it doesn't understand what degree Celsius means for a number. So we have to cut out this last part and just leave the digits up front. And there are different ways to do it. For that we can use some functions for strings. So we can say assign. We can go here just after getting the temperature, and we got here the str temp, and we have to cut the last 2 digits from it. So we can say str temp equals, we say str temp, and we say substring. We can make it bigger so we see what we're typing here. So substring, and now we have to say which substring we want to take, and we have to give the starting position and the end position of the string that we want to keep. Everything else which is not included will be cut out. So we want to take everything from beginning. So we say 0 is the start position and then a comma, and now we have to give it basically the length. So not the last position, but the length. We have the start index here and then the length. So how long should my string be? It could be something like 2 degrees, and then the first part is only 1 digit. Could be 20 degrees, and then we have 2 digits. I'm not sure, but what I'm sure about is that at the end I always have 2 digits, so degree and Celsius. So I can take the length of the whole string minus 2, and minus 2 being the last 2 digits. So I can say str temp, and we say length. So the whole length of the string, however long it is, I don't know, and minus 2. And this will just cut basically the last 2 digits at the end of the string. We say OK, we save, and we can run again. Let's close the browser. Run file. Right, it has typed in the city name, and we get the result, get a hoodie, because the temperature was 14 degrees. We see the 14 now with the last 2 characters cut. And 14 was between 10 and 20, so the result was get a hoodie. And that was it. So we have opened here the browser page. We've given it the web address of the website that contains the weather forecast. We have typed in our city name, then we have hit enter. Then we got the temperature. We have cut the last 2 digits from it. Then we got the weather, if it's cloudy or sunny or rainy. Then we just logged the 2 values for us to see what's happening behind. And then we have 2 ifs here. What's happening if the temperature is below 10, between 10 and 20, or over 20. And we're also checking if we have the word rain inside the weather forecast. So we would tell the user to get an umbrella. At the end, we're cleaning up, closing the tab, and showing the result to the user. I hope you were able to follow along. If not, just leave a comment below with your email address and I will send you the code. I would very much appreciate if you shared with me how you liked or disliked this video. It will help me get better at this and hopefully create better ones next times. If you liked it, please hit the like button. This tells YouTube that this video is worth sharing with others as well. And spread the word among your friends about what you are learning here. Stay curious and see you next time.